Long before Hollywood gave us Chucky and Annabelle, there was another doll. One that didn't just inspire horror movies, but left a trail of real-life terror in its wake. Often referred to as the most haunted object in the world, Robert the Doll isn't just the stuff of ghost stories. He's a legend whispered about in hushed tones, blamed for accidents, tragedies, and even death. Some say he moves on his own, others swear they've heard him whisper. And those who dare disrespect him, they often regret it. Legend says even looking into the doll's beady eyes is enough to curse the most doubting of skeptics. And documented hauntings trace back to the day the doll was created in 1904. Locked away in a museum in Key West, Florida, Robert the Doll sits behind a glass case, waiting for you to come and play. On this episode of Haunting Histories, we aim to uncover the truth. Is Robert the most haunted object in history, or is he something far worse? The story of Robert the Doll begins in the early 1900s, when a young boy named Robert Eugene Otto, known as Gene, was given the eerie toy as a gift. The origins of the doll itself are shrouded in mystery. Some claim it was handmade by a Bahamian servant skilled in voodoo, while others suggest it was a simple, albeit unsettling creation of the German toy company Steiff. Regardless of its beginnings, the doll became Gene's closest companion, and from the moment it entered his life, strange things began to happen. Standing 40 inches tall and stuffed with wood wool known as Excelsior, Robert the Doll is dressed in a sailor suit that once belonged to Otto, and once bore painted features not unlike those of a jester. Considerably large for a toy doll, this one-of-a-kind creation is speculated to have been handmade in the image of his future companion. The doll took Robert as his name, while Otto simply went by Gene. Together, they would go on to make history. Gene, who later became a renowned artist, treated the doll as if it were alive, speaking to it and even blaming it for accidents and mischief around the house. His parents dismissed it as childhood imagination until they began hearing guttural whispers in Gene's room when their son was fast asleep. Neighbors claimed to see Robert moving from window to window when no one was home. Some even swore the doll's expression changed, as if it were watching, waiting. As Gene grew, so did Robert's sinister reputation. Gene's parents frequently heard strange footsteps echoing through the house, even when Gene was elsewhere. Objects would be found overturned or shattered, always with Gene insisting, "Robert did it." Servants grew terrified of the doll, some leaving their jobs entirely, claiming they could no longer bear the unseen forces lurking within the Otto household. One particularly disturbing account involved a houseguest who stayed overnight in Gene's childhood home. She awoke to see Robert sitting at the foot of her bed, his small fabric hands resting on the sheets. She swore the doll blinked. The next morning, she packed her bags and left, refusing to ever return. Even after Gene inherited his childhood home, he could not part with Robert. His wife, Anne, reportedly despised the doll and felt an oppressive presence whenever it was in the room. Gene, however, insisted that Robert needed his own space, even giving the doll a special place in the house's turret room, where visitors claimed to hear laughter echoing from behind closed doors. After Gene's death in 1974, Robert was donated to the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West. It wasn't long before museum staff and visitors began experiencing bizarre phenomena. Electronic devices malfunctioned near the doll, and workers claimed to hear tapping sounds coming from the glass case that housed him. The most famous part of Robert's legacy, however, is his alleged curse. It is said that anyone who takes Robert's picture without asking permission is doomed to suffer misfortune. The museum receives countless letters from visitors who claim to have ignored the warning, only to experience car accidents, job loss, illness, and even death in their families shortly after. The letters are filled with desperate apologies, pleading for Robert's forgiveness. Some believe the curse is real, pointing to an unexplainable string of tragedies linked to the doll. Others dismiss it as superstition, but regardless of belief, few who visit Robert leave without a sense of unease. as if the doll's stitched face is watching them, judging them, waiting. While many of Robert's victims report misfortune and unexplained accidents, there have also been stories of those who suffered far worse. In several chilling cases, people who mocked or disrespected the doll have reportedly died under mysterious circumstances. Some visitors who took photos without permission later perished in car accidents with no clear cause of the crash. Others have suffered sudden fatal heart attacks, despite having no previous health conditions. One well-known case involved a man who visited Robert with his fiancée. Laughing at the warnings, he taunted the doll, calling it fake and snapping several photos. Less than a week later, he died in a freak workplace accident. His fiancée later sent a letter to the museum, begging Robert for forgiveness and apologizing on his behalf. There are also accounts of people falling seriously ill after mocking Robert, suffering from unexplained diseases and rapid deteriorations in health. Is it all coincidence, or is Robert truly exacting revenge on those who fail to show him respect? Robert is often compared to Annabelle, the infamous doll that the Warrens investigated. Both dolls are linked to eerie, supernatural occurrences and curses. The Warrens themselves acknowledged Robert's dark presence, and paranormal researchers have speculated that the same malevolent forces could be at play in both cases. Some believe that both Robert and Annabelle act as vessels for dark entities, their supernatural influence manifesting through misfortune and unexplained phenomena. If Annabelle is said to be a conduit for something malevolent, could Robert also house an ancient and vengeful spirit? Could these dolls be connected by something even darker than we yet understand? Robert's legend continues to spread through pop culture. He was prominently featured in Zach Bagans' Deadly Possessions, where Bagans claimed to feel an overwhelming energy upon encountering Robert. On the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan and his guests discussed the eerie history and alleged curse of the doll, debating whether such an object could truly harbor malevolent energy. Meanwhile, YouTube investigators Sam and Colby visited Robert in a chilling episode where their equipment malfunctioned, and they experienced an inexplicable sense of dread. Robert has also been credited as one of the inspirations behind Child's Play, the horror film that introduced the world to Chucky. While Chucky is a fictional killer doll brought to life by voodoo magic, Robert's influence is apparent in his eerie, childlike demeanor and his association with misfortune. Today, Robert remains encased in glass at the Fort East Martello Museum, his unsettling gaze fixed upon those who dare to visit. The air around him feels heavier than the rest of the museum, as if the very space he occupies is charged with something unseen. Visitors still send letters of apology, pleading for forgiveness, desperate to lift whatever misfortune they believe has followed them home. The museum staff, well acquainted with Robert's eerie presence, report flickering lights, unexplained tapping sounds, and the occasional disembodied whisper near his display case. Some claim his expression changes when no one is watching, as if he is silently judging those who stand before him. Despite the skepticism of some, the legend of Robert the Doll only grows stronger with time. Paranormal researchers continue to investigate the doll's disturbing influence, and horror enthusiasts flock to Key West, eager to catch a glimpse of what may be the most haunted object in the world. But whether you believe in the stories or not, one thing is certain. Those who mock Robert, who take his picture without permission, or who refuse to acknowledge the warnings, often regret it. Would you dare to meet his gaze? Would you risk leaving the museum with more than just a story to tell? Some skeptics dismiss his legend as mere folklore, a tale spun to frighten tourists. But those who have encountered him firsthand tell a different story. They speak of cold dread washing over them, of cameras failing, of feeling an unseen force linger even after they leave the museum. Would you dare to look Robert in the eye?